What's going on, everyone? Today is April 6th, 2022. Welcome back to this edition of the Super Stream. Been a little over a month, maybe about 6 weeks since I've done one of these. Main reason is because my last channel, or this channel, got a strike for my last Super Stream video. I do have the chat open on the side here, and I'm kind of glancing at it as this video will go along. We do have enough to talk about for the next hour here that we can cover the time, but if anybody's got any comments of interest, feel free to throw them in, and I'll take a look as the video goes. In today's video, we're going to talk about several topics, one of which is what everyone has been talking about for the last week and a half now, which was the slap at the Oscars. Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the 94th Oscars really captivated the minds of most of the country. And we'll talk about how this is connected to the death of Taylor Hawkins, which was really my last video on the channel. Of course, I did put up an April Fool's video. We can talk about that later if you guys want. But in my video on Taylor Hawkins, I explained how it was connected to other people named Hawkins and also Hawk. And that's interesting because the Kansas Jayhawks, coached by Bill Self, won the national championship this past week on Monday. And this is part of an ongoing riddle connected to a strong astrological alignment that occurred on the spring equinox. So this video is going to be a little bit all over the place because, well, I don't have too many posts from the last couple weeks, but these topics are deep. There's a lot of astrological elements. We'll talk about the eclipse code and how it connects to the Jayhawks championship this past Monday. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of work on this slap incident. For one, there's already enough people talking about it. Down in the description below, I do have a couple of links to videos made by other Gematria channels on this slap. One of them is Rambo's video. And Rambo, of course, deserves more views. I'm not going to duplicate his work. He puts a lot of time and effort into this. But what he points out is how this is connected to the planet Venus, the planet of love, as Will Smith exhibited a lot of emotion and was seen defending his family out of love. And we're going to talk about that as well as this video goes on. Venus is known as the morning star in astrology. And on March 30th, just last week, NASA came out and told us that they've discovered the furthest star ever seen from the Hubble telescope. And they called it Earendel. Well, Earendel translates to morning star. Venus is known as the morning star. Of course, it's also known as the evening star. However, during the time of the equinox here in the last couple weeks, Venus has been the morning star, rising ahead of the sun early in the morning. I also have a video to a link to Dan Barron's video in the description below. And for those of you not familiar with Dan's work, this video is an hour, but don't be intimidated by the length of it. You'll get so much good information in the first 20, 30 minutes alone. But he talks about how the slap was synced to the death of Taylor Hawkins, and this ongoing peacock riddle, which I found to be really, really fascinating, in light of the fact that we had this China Eastern Airlines crash on the equinox, and that plane company uses peacock symbolism on the aircraft. So very interesting stuff there as well. Of course, Bobby throwing his blog link in the description and in the chat as well. So it's all really interesting stuff, and again, this is connected to my own video on Taylor Hawkins and how it was connected to Freddie Mercury. Now, I made this whole video, and it was over a half hour long. What I didn't even know at the time is that Kurt Cobain, who was Dave Grohl's original bandmate in Nirvana, mentioned Freddie Mercury in his suicide note, which I thought was a pretty startling connection. And we'll talk more about Mercury as we go throughout this video. But first I want to touch on the synchronicity of the slap here, and how this is part of an ongoing UFO riddle. And the reason of this is pretty simple. Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins were part of a band called the Foo Fighters. And the Foo Fighters get their name from the term Foo Fighter, which was first coined during World War II. And of course, this is interesting because right now in the media, we're going through this big World War III riddle, where they're trying to convince the whole world to go at war with Russia, I guess. And this term arose from pilots trying to describe UFOs that were seen in the area. And I thought it was interesting that the Foo Fighters has matching gematria with Roswell, New Mexico, which is, of course, the UFO capital of the United States, maybe even the world. The term Foo Fighters, with this 217 gematria, and the number 217 was important to Taylor Hawkins, who was born on 2/17, February 17th. Again, the same gematria as Roswell, New Mexico. And to cement this connection, Roswell, New Mexico has Jewish gematria of 2507, which represents 257. The name Oliver Taylor Hawkins sums to 257 using the standard alphabetic order. You also get an interesting 257 with a 3 at the end of it. So strong connections to Roswell. And this is cemented, again, by the fact that the Foo Fighters released their music through a record company called Roswell Records, which Dave Grohl founded upon organizing this band. You'll see here, Roswell Records. So there's a strong UFO theme with the Foo Fighters. And this points us to the city of Roswell, New Mexico. Now, on the list of famous people from Roswell, it's not a terribly long list, but there's a couple of names that really pop out. And one of them is Demi Moore. Demi Moore was probably the highest paid actress of the 1990s, starring in many major blockbuster films, a lot of which flopped. But she was really, really big at the time. And of course, one of those films was G.I. Jane, which technically was a box office flop, failing to make back its own budget. And of course, you know where we're going with this, because G.I. Jane was the topic of a joke made by Chris Rock at the Oscars. And this joke, although appearing funny to Will Smith at first, clearly rubbed Jada Smith the wrong way. And after a couple seconds of mulling over what he should do, Will Smith went on stage and slapped Chris Rock in the face. And Will Smith was a funny guy to have do this because at the same time that Demi Moore was starring in films like G.I. Jane, Will Smith was part of his own alien riddle. Remember, he starred in 1996's Independence Day, and a year later starred in the film Men in Black, 2 films about aliens, probably the biggest alien films of the 90s. Will Smith was 183 days after his birthday on the date of the slap, also 183 days before his next birthday. And this number showed up in the death of Taylor Hawkins, who was exactly 18,300 days old when he died. I talked about this number a little bit in my last video because Hawkins was from Fort Worth, Texas, which hosted this year's WrestleMania over in Arlington, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the same day that Hawkins died, of course, Taylor Hawkins' initials TH, 28. Well, the same day he died, famous wrestler Triple H, who's got those TH initials also, he announced his retirement due to a heart condition, which is the same reason that Taylor Hawkins died, due to his heart. This connected to the wrestler Hawk, who was born 183 days before Triple H's birthday, and his name Hawk equals 183, so does Road Warrior Hawk. But this riddle in the media extended past Demi Moore. Back in the 90s, at the time that G.I. Jane would have been released, Demi Moore was married to actor Bruce Willis. And Bruce Willis starred in a film called Mercury Rising. back in 1998 during that marriage. Of course, this stands out because the death of Taylor Hawkins was completely coded to Mercury, the element Mercury, the singer Freddie Mercury, the planet Mercury, and the ancient Roman god Mercury, which is all laid out in my video. Notice how Bruce Willis has the same gematria as Mercury rising, 133. Well, the same week as the slap, just a few days later, we learned that Bruce Willis was retiring from acting due to a condition he's been suffering from called aphasia. Aphasia affects your ability to communicate. And that's, of course, interesting because Mercury is the god of communication. More Mercury riddles playing out through the news after the death of Hawkins. Now, Bruce Willis is a very symbolic actor. Not only did he star in that Mercury Rising film, but you may recall he was the lead actor in the Die Hard series. And Die Hard has significant occult importance. Recall how this movie poster shows explosions at the top of a high-rise building, very similar to what we saw on 9/11 back in 2001. Well, on 9/11, Bruce Willis was the exact same age that JFK was when he was assassinated. And as I have explained in the past, particularly this post which is linked, the murder of JFK was a complete mercurial ritual, as Mercury is also the god of transportation, travelers. JFK killed in a car, his replacement LBJ sworn in on an airplane. JFK was a Gemini, ruled by the planet Mercury. LBJ was a Virgo, also ruled by Mercury. And there's been this strong gender confusion theme. Of course, we're seeing this play out through Disney right now, as Disney is going up against the Florida government with the Don't Say Gay bill. But I just want to point out how bizarre this whole Will Smith family is. And believe it or not, I actually went back and forth a couple times in my head about how scripted what we saw play out really was. Now, when I first heard of the slap, I just assumed it was staged. Well, then I watched the footage and I was like, man, that felt really real. Maybe it wasn't. And then I started to look at the numerology and the synchronicity behind it, and I said, okay, yeah, this is part of the same riddle we've been looking at. But then I went ahead and watched, Dan Barron's video, for instance. And I was like, man, there's so many things that are connected to it. How is it possible that this was scripted? But again, we just share the numerology. You guys can try and figure out what's really happening. It's crazy for me to say it wasn't staged. I mean, this is the guy who literally won Best Actor. But when people are acting, they get many takes. And they're not doing it live in front of millions of people. So for Will Smith to pull off what he did, with all the crying and all the emotion he was displaying, either very impressive or very real. Again, I'll remain neutral on that. But just think about how strange this family is, right? First of all, we start with Will Smith. Actually, let's start with Demi Moore, who is a very odd case herself. Of course, the name Demi is so odd because when you look up the definition of Demi, it usually refers to a demigod, which is a reference to a male. Her middle name is Jean, but it's not Jean like a woman would normally spell it, Jean. It's Jean, Gene, like a guy would spell it. And then her maiden name was Gynes, which has the word guy in it. Just really odd. Well, then we come to Will Smith, and we find that his middle name is Carol, which, can be a male or a female's name, but really is mostly a female's name. And then we look at his wife, Jada Pinkett, whose middle name is Corin. And I thought Corin was a male's name. Apparently, this is a women's name too, but it goes both ways. And then think of their children, right? You have a kid named Jaden, who is a boy but named after the mother. And then you have Willow, who is a girl but who's named after the father. So, a lot of strange things going on with this family. And when you look at the history and how Jada's been cheating on Will, There's so much wrong with this. And it just speaks to this whole destruction of the family agenda that Disney and other corporations are taking part in and have been taking part in for decades. So to me, this ties in together a little too nicely. Now, Will Smith is a big Venus riddle. And just to explain this again, Rambo made a video explaining how Will Smith is connected to Venus. As the movie he won an Oscar for, he played the father of Venus Williams. And Richard Williams, his birthday is Valentine's Day, the day of the heart, representing love like Venus. Well, when Will Smith was born, he was born to a woman whose maiden name was Bright. And this is interesting because, again, Venus is known as the morning star. Venus is the brightest celestial object in the sky behind the sun and the moon. And in fact, its name as the morning star, or light bringer, connects to Lucifer, which translates directly to bringer of light. So not only is Will Smith's mom's maiden name Bright, but he also starred in a film called Bright back in 2017. A movie here called Bright, all part of this larger overarching riddle. So what's so fascinating about this and Venus? Well, let's go back quickly to the China Eastern crash, which fell on March 21st, the spring solstice. And the symbolism that I missed with this crash is that the airplane was decorated like a peacock. And a peacock is a symbol of spring, as it spreads its wings, spreads its feathers, very similar to the sun in the sky. So that was a pretty strong connection. Well, on the solstice, there was a conjunction between the planets Mercury and Jupiter. Now, I commonly talk about magic squares on this channel and how each planet has a small set of numbers associated with it based on its magic square. Well, Mercury's magic square sums to 2080. Jupiter's magic square is 136, and if you add them together, you get 2216. Now, there's a very significant Bible verse numbered 2216. This is out of the book of Revelation. And this is where Jesus claims that he is the bright and morning star. That's right. Even the Bible itself says that Jesus is Lucifer, speaking to the duality between good and evil. And I want you to look at the gematria of this Bible verse. Check this out. When you write out Revelation 22:16 and the verse exactly as it appears in the King James Bible, which is the Masonic Bible, notice how you get a gematria value of 2022. Here we are in the year 2022 at the spring equinox, and we're getting this major Venus ritual connected to Will Smith, who's all about Venus. So this is a huge part of what's going on in the media right now. I have no doubt about it. This is too big of a coincidence. Well, look at how old Will Smith was on the date of the slap, which was March 27th. 19,541 days old. Well, let's bring this into the properties calculator and check this out. 19,541. Well, check this out. It's the 2216th prime number, 2216. Pointing to the Bible verse of Venus, Lucifer, the morning star. This number popped up again recently because yesterday, former President Barack Obama visited the White House, where his former vice president is currently the vice president, or the actual president, so to speak. Look at how old Barack Obama was when he made his White House visit. He was in his 22,160th day. Of course, in the middle here we have the digits 216, which is 6 times 6 times 6. Of course, 666 is a number that a lot of people associate with the word Lucifer. Many people also think Obama's the Antichrist. But 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. And Barack Obama was born on the 216th day of the year. But check out how August 4th, Obama's birthday, also leaves 149 days on the calendar. Notice how planet Venus equals 149 in the alphabetic order. So does Morning Star in reverse. Morning Star, 149. But here's where this gets downright ridiculous. On March 30th, which was just a couple days after the slap and a few days before Obama's visit to the White House, NASA came out and told us that scientists have discovered a new furthest star from Earth, 28 billion co-moving light years. They named this star Earendel, which translates to morning star. Do you see the script in play here? A new star, the morning star, just 3 days after the giant morning star ritual involving Will Smith and Chris Rock. This name Earendel comes from Lord of the Rings, actually, and I wanted to point out how Earendel is connected to both men in the Oval Office yesterday. Notice how Earendel sums to 64. The name Barack Hussein Obama sums to 64, his full name. But notice how Earendel has perfect gematria overlap in all 4 base ciphers with Joe Biden. 64, 37, 152, and 44. It's a perfect match. Joe Biden and Earendel. Barack Obama has some more connections, in fact, because he's a second, right? The second. And this name sums to 181 and 641. A lot like the Morning Star, which is 181 and 640. Barack Obama even with the 181. Now, on the date of the equinox, when we had this significant Jupiter-Mercury conjunction, the date of the China Eastern plane crash, Venus was as far away from the sun as it can possibly be. 47 degrees of elongation. That's maximum elongation. And again, Venus was the morning star at the time. So not only was Venus the morning star on the equinox, but it was the morning star for the longest possible period of time. 47 degrees, which is almost 3 hours in the sky before the sunrise. Now, Barack Obama is connected to the morning star in more ways. Earlier I mentioned how the light bringer, the morning star, translates to Lucifer, which sums to 323. Well, the name Barack Hussein Obama has double gematria of 323, both in the reverse order and with capital letters. There was an ancient Roman holiday called Veneralia, where the planet Venus was celebrated. And I thought it was interesting that this date was April 1st, which falls in between the dates of Will Smith's slap and Barack Obama's White House visit. When you write out Veneralia in Gematria, it sums to 861. 861 is the 41st triangular number. And again, Veneralia celebrated on the date written 4/1, April 1st. Now, the number 41 is significant to Venus for another reason. When you write out planet Venus, it sums to 41 in reduction gematria. On the date of Obama's visit, Joe Biden was 4,141 weeks old and 4 days. And his birthday even leaves 41 days on the calendar. On the date of Obama's visit, Biden had been in the White House for 1 year and 75 days. And 175 is another strong Venus number. If you add every row or column in Venus's magic square, it sums to 175. Furthermore, he was also 229 days before his next birthday. The name Barack Obama equals 229, numbers found in both men's birth numerology. Also, Venus takes 224 days to orbit the sun. Obama and Biden were born 224 days apart. In fact, I actually want to look at this closer. These two men's birthdays, 224 months. Okay, it's about 224 and a half. I was going to see if it was 0.7. Because that's actually closer to Venus's orbital period. Yeah, some interesting stuff in the chat that people are bringing up. I do want to talk about this later on in the video. We have enough things to cover with the numbers right now that we're going to keep trudging forward, but I do have things to address as far as the community goes, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Of course, the term community, not one I'm really a big fan of, but let's be honest about it, right? Speaking of the president, our selected leader, along with his vice president, Kamala Harris, both of them got their second booster shot on April 2nd, which means this is actually their fourth shot, which is incredible because that means I'm 4 shots behind and I'm still fine. So, whoops. This story was, of course, by the numbers on a date with primary numerology of 48, April 2nd. And 48 is the reduction value of booster shot. Booster shot yields a 48. And this was connected to the Grammys. Notice how the Grammys equals 48. Now, why is it connected to the Grammys? Well, on the same day that these two got their shots, we learned that singer Miley Cyrus tested positive for COVID, meaning that she would be missing the 64th annual Grammy Awards. And the name Miley equals 64. 64th Grammys. Remember, Miley is the daughter of famous country singer Billy Ray Cyrus, whose name also sums to 64. And curiously enough, Billy Ray Cyrus performed at the Grammys less than a year after Miley Cyrus was born. Now, on the date of this story, Billy Ray Cyrus was 220 days after his birthday, and this was the big number that tied all of these stories together. The number 220 has been the big number of the coronavirus pandemic, which began in the year 2020. Of course, coronavirus pandemic, orthocoronavirinae, Donald John Trump, Operation Warp Speed, Master Builder Number, all summing to 220 in the English and reverse order. If you measure from the start of the coronavirus pandemic in the United States to the date of this news, it was 2 years and 20 days. But 2 years and 20 days is also a span of 751 days, like this. The Grammys equals 751. Of course, this date that coronavirus was declared a national emergency here in the United States was extremely significant. It was the 13th of March, written 1303. And coronavirus equals 1303. Coronavirus also equals 56. That was the primary numerology of that date. And now we get a connected story with the president, who also has that 133 in Gematria. And the president was 133 days after his birthday when he got his booster shot. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris was 164 days after her birthday. Her name equals 164, similar to her birth year, 1964. Kamala was also 201 days before her next birthday, and who can forget the number 201 in connection to the coronavirus pandemic? Event 201 right here. So I'm sure Miley will be fine. Her voice will be fine. Everyone's going to be okay. There's no real danger here. It's just not. But if I continue talking about this, they're going to give me another strike. They're going to say, no, damn it, you can't tell people about the truth. So, again, you guys can figure it out on your own. Quick shout out to the chat. I apologize. I kind of forgot to take a look at this as I was going down. But thanks to everybody who's dropping some hard facts there. I want to talk about some news from Monday. So we had a pair of very significant related stories, and it all started early on April 4th when we learned that Elon Musk had bought into a significant share of Twitter. Elon Musk now owns nearly 10% of shares that belong to Twitter. So let's pull up the pages for Elon and Twitter here. And to acknowledge this purchase, Elon made a tweet that just said, "Oh, hi, LOL." Because, Elon's so goofy, he's so cool. And check out the gematria of this tweet. It's almost a perfect overlap with Elon Musk. 29, 43, 110. This is cluing us into the fact that this is just a gematria ritual. So not only do they share gematria in the 3 base ciphers, but when you write out "Oh, hi, LOL," check out the Jewish or Latin value of 165. Elon Reeve Musk, his full name, 165. Certainly no coincidence there. Now, this tweet was made at 11:04 a.m. Well, I'm in Central Time. So Eastern Time, this was actually 12:04 a.m. And 12:04 is really the big number here. In English gematria, Twitter equals 12:04. The full name Elon Reeve Musk equals 1240. And check out the birth numerology of Elon Musk. 6 plus 28 plus 19 plus 71 sums to 124. So right off the bat, we see that this tweet is entirely by the numbers. And what I want to talk about is how this all happened the same day that the Kansas Jayhawks, again, connected to this hawk theme with Taylor Hawkins, won the NCAA basketball tournament. Now, what makes this so significant is that 124 is a number that's connected to the University of Kansas. The University of Kansas equals 124. With capital letters, Jayhawks equals 124. And the name Jayhawk on its own equals 1240, just like Elon Reeve Musk, 1240 in Jewish. Also remember that the last total solar eclipse fell on the date 12/4, December 4th. And as we get into the decode on the Kansas Jayhawks, we'll explain how eclipse numerology is very significant to that. However, there's always a strong moon riddle with Elon Musk, and the reason is very simple. In Jewish gematria, Elon Musk has this value of 445. This is the ancient Hebrew gematria value of total lunar eclipse, 445. And if you measure from the last total lunar eclipse to the date of this news story, you get 44 weeks and 5 days. To cement the connection to the moon, consider how Elon Musk was born on June 28th, the date written 6/28 on the calendar. Well, the day after Elon made this tweet, he turned exactly 628 lunar phases old. In fact, I point out how that happened at night. And of course, night is when the Kansas Jayhawks beat the Tar Heels. What I thought was also interesting about this is that the name Dorsey, Twitter's last CEO, sums to 629, which is just one off of 628. But of course, Elon Reeve Musk, also born on the date leaving 186 days in the year, 628. The name Elon Reeve Musk, and 4th of April, summing to 186. April 4th is written 44. The name Musk equals 44. Also, the name Elon equals 46. This tweet was made 4 months and 6 days after former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey stepped down. And of course, that was entirely by the numbers. Feel free to search my channel for a video on that. And I also pointed out how Twitter's initial founding date was significant. Now, the reason I pointed this out is because Twitter was founded on a date with numerology of 50. And the date of this tweet also had numerology of 50. Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but this is all connected to the University of Kansas. So again, Twitter, founded on March 21st of 2006. Well, the University of Kansas was founded on March 21st. This means that when Twitter was founded, the University of Kansas turned 141 years old. Well, this game had a total of 141 points in it. And the reason 141 is so significant here ties back to head coach Roy Williams. Roy Williams, the basketball coach, where the hell was he? Notice how Roy Williams spent 15 years as the coach of the Kansas Jayhawks and then spent 18 years as the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, the two teams in Monday's championship game. And his name equals 141. Also, the Kansas Jayhawks get their nickname from the word Jayhawker, which equals 141. The term Jayhawker was the nickname given to people from Kansas who fought in the American Civil War. So earlier we saw the Foo Fighter connection to World War II. Now we see more themes with the Civil War. And again, have no doubt about it, the dark occult, the deep state would love it if there was a big World War III that was technically just a civil war. In a society that's connected across all borders through the internet, any world war at this point would actually be a civil war, if you think about it. Make of that what you will. But this game was also connected to current Kansas head coach Bill Self. And Bill Self was a graduate of Oklahoma State University, which also sums to 141, the number of points in this game. As far as this 213, think about the date March 21st, which can be written 21/3. A lot like March 21st. Actually, before I do that, the date March 21st, which of course is the equinox, the spring equinox, which we've been talking about this whole video, it's also very similar to February 13th, the other date that you can write 213. The championship game was on April 4th, the date written 4/4, and February 13th is the 44th day of the year, which leaves 3/21 on the calendar. So there's a strong riddle in the calendar that connects March 21st, February 13th, the spring equinox. You're kind of seeing it all to come together here. And this year, the national championship game was Kansas and North Carolina, which sums to 213 when you add the two team names together. So I do want to talk about the Eclipse Code, but before I do, I just want to point out that there's a big reason that this game was the biggest comeback in the history of the NCAA championship game. Notice how Kansas Jayhawks sums to 163, which is the reverse value of comeback, the 38th prime number, all occurring one day after WrestleMania 38. These college basketball games at the high level, in the tournament finals, it's just wrestling on wood, essentially. Kansas also captured the title 65 days after the state of Kansas was admitted to the Union, or the anniversary of that. It was a date with 50 numerology, like America. And notice how Coach Bill Self of the Kansas Jayhawks still has 229 losses in his career. That's the 50th prime number. And he's coached 922 games, the inverse of 229. Now, before I get into the eclipse numerology, I just want to mention how this Kansas Jayhawks comeback is connected to Tiger Woods' comeback. Now, back in early 2021, we were told that Tiger Woods was badly injured in a car accident. And at the time, they were like, oh, he may never walk again. Not only will he not swing a golf club, but he won't even be able to walk the course. And people who watch my videos understood that this accident was completely staged, completely fake. And it was all a riddle connected to the year of the Tiger, which we are currently in. Remember, Tiger Woods had a famous car accident back in 2009, which was also right before the year of the Tiger. That year, it was the year of the metal tiger, 2010, and Tiger Woods' car accident was into a metal fire hydrant. Well, this year is the year of the water tiger, and Tiger Woods got in an accident on his way to Riviera Golf Course, like a river. And he was going to train two NFL quarterbacks, Drew Brees and Justin Herbert. Well, both men played quarterback for the Chargers, bookending the career of Phillip Rivers, another water reference. Again, the year of the water tiger. This stuff is literally a joke on the public and the population who have no idea about esoteric knowledge and how it's exercised through the mainstream. So here we are, barely 12 months later, and sure enough, Tiger Woods is walking the golf course. He's playing good golf, and he's actually going to play in the Masters. So the fact that the Kansas Jayhawks just completed the biggest comeback in tournament history right before Tiger Woods' comeback the same week is no coincidence. Check out how the name Tiger equals 201 in Gematria. This year, the year of the Tiger began on February 1st, written 201. And this is the first year of the Tiger since the year 2010. And look at Jayhawks in Gematria, 2010. Like the year of the last year of the Tiger. Notice how the word comeback equals 53. This year's Masters tournament begins on April 7th, which is a date with primary numerology of 53. 53 is the 16th prime number, and the Kansas Jayhawks came back from 16 points down to win the game. Notice how they won with a total of 72 points. Tiger Woods' real name, Eldrick Taunt Woods, sums to 72. And yes, his middle name is really Taunt. Pretty cool, right? Furthermore, Tiger's comeback will be on the 97th day of the year. And April 7th is also the 98th day of a leap year. Kansas equals 97. Jayhawks equals 98. And when he makes his return, it'll be 98 days after his birthday. Very similar to how Coach Bill Self, whose birthday falls 3 days before Tiger, won the championship 98 days before his birthday. Again, Jayhawks equals 98. With the S exception, the Masters tournament equals 98. So I would say expect some big things from Tiger this weekend. He's certainly not going to win the tournament, but, you know, he can make the cut. Think about how big the ratings will be if he makes it to the weekend. It's going to be huge. So absolutely, I think he will make it that far. But all predictions wrong or your money back here on this channel. All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper into the Kansas Jayhawks championship victory. Now, as I pointed out earlier, Twitter has the same founding date as the University of Kansas. And it was exactly 141 years apart, which again was the number of points scored in the game. Well, if you convert this measurement to days, you get 51,500 days. And it struck me right away This is very significant. This is a 33 riddle, a riddle for the number 33, and I'll explain why. When you use the prime number cipher, 33 equals 515, and in reverse, 33 equals 141. Notice how the University of Kansas has a motto. It's written in both Latin and English. Again, this is kind of more evidence that Latin gematria is super significant. All these universities all around the country always using Latin. But notice how this motto comes from Exodus 3:3, chapter 3, verse 3. This is a 33 reference. And, of course, Jesus was crucified at the age of 33. And in English gematria, notice how Jesus equals 515. Jesus also equals 985, and Kansas's coach, Bill Self, graduated in the year 1985. Notice how Jayhawks has gematria of 330, like the word eclipse is 33. This game was a tribute to Roy Williams, who coached both teams, and he spent 33 years as the head coach, 1988 through 2021, 33 years. So again, 33, the big eclipse number. And the last eclipse fell on the date 12/4, which again was connected to Elon Musk and the whole Twitter thing at 12:04. Now, if we measure from that eclipse, December 4th of 2021 to the date of the championship game, notice how we get 121 days. Well, the coach, the winning coach, Bill Self equals 121. But if you convert this measurement to weeks, it's 17 weeks and 2 days. Well, the name Bill Self equals 172. So a connection in the same cipher there. Also, Bill Self equals 77. That's cool because University of Kansas, who he coaches, equals 77. And it was North Carolina who they defeated in this game. North Carolina equals 77. In English gematria, Kansas equals 272. Bill Self's full name has matching gematria with Kansas. Look at this, 272 in reverse. And why is 272 so significant this year? Well, notice how 2022 equals 272 in the alphabetic order. And 2022 also equals 65. Kansas equals 65, winning 65 days after Kansas's date of admission. But check this out. 2022 in Jewish gematria sums to 414. Now, this isn't really related. However, I happen to live in the 414 area code, and I thought, I wonder if there's a riddle for Milwaukee this year, given that 2022 equals 414, which is our area code. And this led me to make this tweet yesterday. The Major League Baseball season starts tomorrow, April 7th, but the Milwaukee Brewers don't have their opening day until April 14th, which is written 414. And they're calling this 414 Day at the ballpark. And they released a bunch of tickets for $4.14, and the first pitch is scheduled for 4:14 p.m. Perfect for the year 2022. Just proving again that these people love their numerology. They just love it so much. So a little bit more about how the Jayhawks win was connected to the total solar eclipse code. And for anyone new to this channel, we are currently in a very significant period of time between the two great American total solar eclipses that create an X over the middle of the United States. Think about how during a total solar eclipse, we can see the sun's corona. That's the only time we can see it. Only visible during a total solar eclipse. So it's no coincidence that we got the coronavirus halfway between these two events. Now, most things that happen in the news, most significant sporting events, they observe the alignments to these eclipses and then code it accordingly. And I've been talking about this for, close to 5 years now. And this game was no exception. So if you measure from the first eclipse to the Kansas Jayhawks' victory, it was 241 weeks. Well, 241 is the 53rd prime number, and this game featured a significant comeback. And the word comeback equals 53. Well, if you measure to the next Great American Eclipse, it was exactly 105 weeks before it. And look at the gematria of comeback with capital letters. 105. Also, 53 is the value of solar eclipse in reduction. This is the same as Vesica Piscis, the shape that is formed at the beginning of a solar eclipse. This game fell 227 days after the anniversary of the first eclipse. And the tournament was held in New Orleans, Louisiana, which equals 227, which is the same as total eclipse in the Hebrew language, 227. The school they defeated was North Carolina, coached by Hubert Ira Davis, both summing to 67. And 67 connects back to total solar eclipse, 67. Now, notice how total solar eclipse equals 202. And this is important because this was the year 22 championship. Now, the 202nd prime number is 1231, 202. And look at New Orleans in Gematria, 1231. This is why anytime there's a major championship in New Orleans, there's always a significant eclipse riddle behind it because the city is so coded with eclipse numbers. Now, when you write out eclipse, it sums to 69, like eclipse the sun. And of course, the Kansas Jayhawks defeated the Tar Heels, who scored 69 points. This game was a tribute to Roy Williams, whose name equals 69. Kansas's current coach, Billy Eugene Self, equals 69. The coach of North Carolina, Hubert Davis, equals 69. Do you see now why they scored 69 points? And don't forget, University of North Carolina sums to 133 and 331. These are both connected to the 1331 total solar eclipse code, the merging of 133 and 331. Notice how New Orleans also has this gematria of 144 in the reverse alphabetic order. And this is very important because this year's championship was held on April 4th, which equals 144. It's the only date on the calendar that can be written like a 44, 4/4. This also equals 144. Well, in Sumerian gematria, the letter X has a value of 144. And here we're talking about the two twin eclipses creating an X. Well, X is the 24th letter in the alphabet, and this year's championship was held exactly 2 years and 4 days before the end of the X. And the number 44 was very significant here. Toward the end of the game, North Carolina player Armando Bacot, whose name sums to 44, suffered a twisted ankle when he could have put his team ahead. Twisted ankle equals 44. The man who won Final Four Most Outstanding Player, Ochai Agbaji, he was born on a date with 44 numerology, and he's even from Wisconsin, which equals 44. Wisconsin also has the same 1231 as New Orleans, by the way. Certainly no coincidence. Also, this game took place on April 4th, and check this out. The next total solar eclipse to occur on the date April 4th will be in the year 2201. And in English Gematria, University of Kansas equals 2201. Really, really wild stuff there. Notice how the word eclipse has matching gematria with Jayhawk, 192. University of Kansas, very close, 1921. A little rule of Colel out there. So there you have it. Everything from the media bleeding into each other, but ultimately all connected to astrological riddles on the calendar, particularly the eclipse code, which I like to spend a significant amount of time talking about. So let's see, it's 12:56. We're nearing the end of the video here, and just real quick, I wanted to touch on, for those of you who were able to stick around this late, you know, I've always wanted to make an April Fool's video ever since I started making Gematria videos on YouTube. I thought making an April Fool's video on Gematria would just be hilarious, but I could never pull the trigger on it because I never really wanted to make fun of myself because, I mean, yeah, it can be funny, but I'm still trying to introduce this to the world, and I want to be serious about this, but at the same time, I'm not the most serious person in the world. I don't take myself very seriously, in general. So, finally, I found a reason to make fun of numerology, and it resulted in the video you guys saw this past week. And for those of you who didn't get it, there's another channel out there called Decode Your Reality. It's a guy named Logan. And I actually did an interview with Logan a few weeks ago, and we had a pretty good conversation. You know, I don't even really disagree with everything he's talking about. You know, he shares some cool nuggets in his videos, but if you couldn't tell by the tone of this video, I'm not a fan of what he's doing with numbers. 90% of what he does doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't think it makes any sense to anybody. So what this video was just to demonstrate how when you play with two-digit numbers and you play with so many different tools, you are bound to find coincidences, just things that just happen to connect. And that's what this video does. This video is ridiculous. It's supposed to be ridiculous. And for anyone who didn't get it, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't try to be mean-spirited about it. I could have come on here and called him all sorts of names like some other Gematria channels, but that's not my style. So I just wanted to do this, and I hopefully got my message across because, again, you know, it takes a lot for me to really talk smack about anybody who's out there sharing numerology, but there are times when I'm watching his videos where I think he's actually making fun of us, some of the ridiculous things he does. So, hey, if you guys like watching his videos, if you guys get something from it, great. Go ahead, you know, sub to his channel. I don't care. But for someone like me who uses, like, just base gematria and just date numerology, it's kind of, it feels like a slap in the face a little bit. So, you know, that's all. I made my point. I don't have anything else really to say on it. Because on the other hand, all of us are looking at this through a different lens, right? I mean, how many people are out there making gematria videos, and how many of those videos are exactly the same? None of them. They're all very different. So I have to tell myself that I remain open-minded to these types of things. And again, there's great nuggets in there, but for the most part, I just think there's some really random connections that shouldn't really impress anybody, you know? So it doesn't make sense, and I see you guys in the chat, you know, most of you guys agree. The comments definitely agreed. And, you know, I don't want to sound like a little baby about it. Of course, it's hard not to when I talk about this, but how is it that his channel has more subscribers and views than mine? I understand he uses a little more production, better graphics, but his numerology is not that interesting. So it's odd, right? And seeing as I'm kind of talking a little smack about people in the Gematria community, Bobby mentioned earlier at the beginning of this live stream that apparently Zach went live as soon as I went live this morning. Look, that could be a coincidence. I don't really care. Zach is promoting Rambo on his channel, which is really good. You know, he has him on his show every week still, as far as I know. And that's awesome because the work that Rambo's doing is really the work that people need to be made aware of. That stuff's awesome. And again, his channel is The Truth Codes. So if you want to learn about how St. Peter's Cross was coded into the plane crash, do that. It's excellent stuff. But Zach is a character who has said a lot of dumb shit about me in the past. So, like, as far as me calling into his show and collaborating with him, hell no, I won't. I believe that what he's doing is defrauding people out of money. He's not honest about his sports picks. With all the great work he's done in numerology to wake people up to Gematria and how things are playing out in the media, with all of that he's done, he was in a position to really run the truth community and really be someone that everyone could look up to. But he turned this into self-financial gain, making a ton of money off of sports picks while not betting on it. And then he constantly lies about making picks when he didn't. It's a joke. I mean, I can't take the guy seriously anymore. And for years and years, I've been talking about how things are connected to eclipses. And yeah, maybe I went a little overboard on it for a short amount of time there. But it took him a long, long time to acknowledge that there was anything to it. And before he did, I had to call him a fucking retard in a text message. In order for him to finally, you know, turn and see. So, yeah, I don't watch Gematria affect sports, no. You know, it's pointless. And ever since I started decoding, I've always kind of... Now, I decode sports games after the fact and talk about numerology there, but as far as, you know, looking at records and trying to guess who's going to win based on that, I realized very early on that it's nonsense. And yeah, occasionally you're going to win a little money on a game here and there, and you're going to say, oh, I saw the numbers ahead of time, so that's why I was right. But there's something called confirmation bias with sports picks, too. I mean, someone's got to win the game. So, yeah, I mean, you know, for him to ignore astrology and astronomy, especially with eclipses. Another question I have is, how come Zach has never used my date calculator? He uses the Gematria calculator for obvious reasons because it's always been the best. But why doesn't he use the date calculator that's on my website either? It's kind of strange, you know. It's more user-friendly than the time between dates calculator or whatever. And I don't know. It's all strange. Somebody in the chat told me I'm wrong. What am I wrong about? I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree. It's the visuals and presentation that, if that's what you're saying, RD, that draws in the audience. Absolutely. And he's got a real friendly voice, you know. He's nice to talk to. Nice to listen to him talk. So, yeah, I don't want to be hard on the guy. I mean, maybe he didn't buy all of his subscribers, and maybe people really are impressed by his stuff. And if so, great. I hope he finds happiness doing it. But at the same time, I mean, it's not nearly as interesting as base gematria, dates on the calendar. We're using the same methods every time. We don't have to answer any questions about why we're making certain connections. So, yeah. That's all I really have to say on it. You know, again, it all started when I didn't agree with Zach about organic numerology. And when I was on Decode Your Reality show, I talked about that story from 2018 with the guy from Syracuse. And Zach won't even acknowledge that the person I talked to is even a real person. It's bizarre, man. It's so far out there. So, you know, I'm fortunate enough now where I have my own platform. You know, I got the website. I have my own channel. I can talk about this stuff on my own without having to rely on other people for exposure. Of course, over the next year, we're going to keep building Gematrinator. This website, as you see now, it's not secure. It's because I didn't know what I was doing when I was building this. Before the end of the year, this is all going to be redesigned into a new web application, and we're going to make decoding a lot easier for everybody who's doing this. Right now, there's separate pages for the calculator and the date calculator. But for those of you who want it, there will be improved methods for making connections across these. So, if I'm still streaming, I'm just now told my reconnection was successful, so hopefully I'm still streaming. Anyway, that was weird. It's been a long time since I got bumped like that. Anyway, so yeah, my point about this is that I'm still posting in the blog pretty regularly. You'll see it's been a little bit thin over the past couple weeks. Don't be surprised if it's still thin as I focus more on the website and developing something new, because I think we're really turning the corner. I'm a strong believer that while the fight isn't over and certainly things are still playing out, this agenda, this New World Order agenda, this Great Reset, it's not what they hoped it would be. And truth is going to win. And this calculator is just a small sliver of that, but it's going to help a lot of people grow and understand the reality around them. So, yeah, we can probably add pi in some extent. I do agree that it's significant. Again, I'm going to be careful about what I add, because you introduce too many tools, too many things, and suddenly you've created a whole class of people who are running themselves crazy about numbers. And that's one thing I'm very cautious about too. Like, if you know me in my personal life, I'm really not obsessed with numbers all the time. I try not to think about it too much. For a period of time, I certainly was. But, I'm just trying to enjoy my life and live things without this constant distraction, Like, these numbers are creating a world for us to live in and enjoy. And if we get too sidetracked with the underlying numbers, then you kind of suck out your enjoyment and you turn into this left-brained robot. And that's not good. I mean, talking about the other channel that went live the same time as me, when he was interviewed and asked, he said he has no friends. That's not necessarily healthy, Friends can help you keep grounded among this crazy world we live in. So, I don't know. Again, I'm done with talking about this today. No need to lower the vibrations. We got enough fun things to share on this channel, but that is going to do it for the live stream, everybody. Thanks to all of you for jumping in live, whether you're watching live or archived. Everyone's free to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for changes over the next couple months. Peace, love, God bless. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.